All right, shalom, shalom to the nation of Israel, shalom. This is your brother Kazaki out of Great Millstone, New Orleans, coming to you with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shai. All right, and prior to getting started, we want to give all infinite honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Harchakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone who rule and teach well. Peace, blessings, and salutations be to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, all right? And the title of today's lesson is going to be The Lord Loves Comes with Pain, okay? That's the title of today's lesson. The Lord's love will come with pain, okay? You know, so as we move forward, you know, within this truth, you know, expect, you know, sufferings, okay? Expect loss, you know, expect hurt, okay? Expect afflictions, okay? These are all things that you're going to have to go through while trying to worship the Lord, okay? Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shai. All right, so I'm gonna get this first precept real quick. Got a few of them lined up. All right. All right, this is Psalms 34 and verse 19. It says, "Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him out of them all." Okay, so, you know, yeah, the Lord, you know, is going to chastise you, man. You know, like the scriptures say, you know, in the book of Hebrews, man. You know, if the Lord doesn't chastise you, you know, badger, you know, basically, you know, be on you, you know what I'm saying? You know, we're doing the work, doing the will, okay, or just, you know, in general, you know, because it's still within the Lord's, you know, power, man, to, you know, to send you through, you know, sufferings, right? So, you know, the Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, he suffered, you know, so we're going to suffer in like manner. But, you know, the scriptures say at the end that man is going to be what? He's going to be delivered, okay? You know, so there's a hope and a reward in going through the pains and sufferings of Yahweh Shemel Shai, man, okay? That's the beauty, you know, that comes with, you know, this truth, man. All right, let's go ahead and get another precept. Let's see here. Okay, this is Psalms 44 and verse 22. It says, "Yeah, for thy sake are we killed all the day long. We are counted as a sheep to the slaughter." Okay, so what are you basically, like, what are you suffering, man? Like, what are you going through? You know, you're going through spiritual and physical pains, man. You feel like you know, you're going through hell, so to speak. And man, there's a lot of brothers that's catching hell, man. You know, you're going to catch it, right? You know, pursuing back to, you know, Sirach, the second chapter. You know, it goes to matter of fact, I'll just get it real quick because it's such a beautiful chapter. You know, get a little bit out of that. The Sirach 2 and verse 1, it says, "My son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul from temptation." Okay, so if you come to serve the Lord, prepare to be you know, tempted, man. Okay, you know, a lot of times we talk about what the old man, you know, putting off the old man, putting on a new man. And even when you put on a new man, the old man still shows back up, right? Trying to get you to fall back into worldly lust, you know, sins that you dabble with, you know, while you was in the world, you know. But the point is, you know, to be triumphant over those things, man. You know, noticing when it comes, knowing how to rebuke it, knowing how to move forward, man. Okay. So, but that comes with what? That comes with serving the Lord, man. You know, you're going to be afflicted. You're going to go through pain. You're going to go through sorrows. You're going to go through miseries. Okay. All of those things are very well possible when serving the Lord, man. Okay. You know, look at, you know, basically, you know, let me see how to use Abraham, for example, man. Abraham had to basically, you know, sacrifice his son, man. Okay. He was put in a position where the Lord, you know, basically told him to do it, man. And he, you know, he was going to do it. Okay. But, you know, think about the mindset of the man when, you know, he was told to do it. You know, I'm pretty sure, you know, Abraham loved his son, man. He loved Isaac, okay? But that was the condition that came with the battle, okay? So it's just something to look out for. All right, let's go to verse 2. It says, set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make not haste in time of trouble, man. So, you know, in a time of trouble, guess what? You know, don't be hasty, man. Don't be rash. You know, don't be quick to make decisions, man. You need to, you know, think, you know, about what you're going to do. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? Now, we know, you still got to be light on your feet, so to speak, right? You may have to be, depending on the situation, you may have to be quick in your decision, but, you know, just pray to the Lord, man. And the Lord's going to deliver you from out of, you know, whatever trouble, right? A trial that you're going through, okay? You know, just keep the faith until the end, man, and keep pushing. And it also said, what? Constantly endure, man. Okay? You know, so, you know, basically, you know, constantly, you know, keep trying to prevail. Keep trying to overcome, man. The scriptures tell you that, you know, basically, you know, he that overcome it, man. You know, and it also talks about, you know, what? Overcoming what? The world, man. Okay? And within the world, it's going to be, you know, you're going to have people against you. Okay? You're going to have, you know, troubles at the job. You're going to have car issues. You're going to have, you might have lady issues, you know, and it just keeps coming, man. You know, but the Lord, just know the Lord loves you, man. And that love is going to come with some chastisement, which is, you know, can be painful, right? To deal with those things. All right. All right. Let me get a little bit more, maybe down to verse 4 or 5. It says, cleave unto him and depart not away, that thou mayest be increased at thy last end. Okay. You know, it's what? Cleave unto the Lord, man. You know, cleave unto the, you know, the doctrine. You know what I'm saying? Keep the word, you know, nigh to you, man. Keep it within your mind, right? Keep it within your spirit. Okay. You know, don't depart from it, right? Which means don't go back into the world. Don't leave those things behind, man. You know what I'm saying? This is the highway. You know what I'm saying? This is the way, the beginning paths to, you know, salvation, okay? Through this truth. All right? And it says, verse 4, it says, whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully, and be patient when thou art changed to a lower state. And that's very much so possible, man. You know what I'm saying? Because you know that your suffering is specifically designed, even within the truth, by Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai. You know, so it's a beautiful thing to take on those sufferings, because you know that the Lord, you know, is dealing with you to build you up for whatever, you know, test, right, that you may have to take, okay? Because, you know, majority of brothers' walks are going to be what? It's going to be different, man. Like the brothers say, you know, you got one brother, you know, they may be all from one area, but all their stories may be tailor-made for them. It's accustomed to them and what they went through, you know. You know, like I say, that's a you know, a beautiful thing, man. And it says, yeah, it says, and be patient when thou art changed to a lower state, right? You know, because, you know, that's going to happen to you, man. You know, coming into the truth. You know, like some brothers might have, you know, some things within the world, or, you know, they may have a certain small portion of those things, man. But it's possible that you can lose all those things. And eventually, you know, more than likely, you will lose those things, right? Because, you know, the scriptures basically talk about, you know, the MOTB, man. So if you're not able to basically have transactions, right, to basically make commerce, to basically to buy and sell is what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? You know, how you gonna pay your bills, man? Okay, you're gonna be leaning on Yahweh Shimon Shai to, you know, to provide for you in those days. So all the things that you gain within the world are temporal. That's the man being changed to, you know, a lower state. Or you might have, you know, a brother, you know, might be dealing with, you know, pride or something. You know what I'm saying? The Lord knocks you out of that pride, coming into the truth. Okay? You know, that's being an example of being what? Changed to a lower state, man. You know, so let's go to the next verse. It says, verse 5, it says, for gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. Right? So you're gonna, that's what it's gonna feel like, man. Gold tried in the fire. It's love at the end of the day. Duly noted. Okay, from Yahweh Shema Shai. But you know what I'm saying? You're gonna go through some tough, some rugged, you know, painful, yeah, or spiritually painful, or even physically painful trials and tribulations, man. Okay, adversities, things that are set against thee, man. Okay, you know, you got to remember, pretty much, you know, us brothers are what? We're up against what? The world, man. Everybody and everything that's in it, right? You know, you shining a light of Yahweh Shema Shai. You know, the people don't like that light, okay? They don't want to come to that light, because within that light requires what? It requires change, okay? It requires for you to be different, all right? All right, let's get another precept. Let's see, yeah. Wait a minute. This is Isaiah 53 and verse 3. It says, he is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we did hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Right? I'm gonna go down to the next verse. Verse 4. It says, surely he have borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten with God, and afflicted. Right? And this is talking about who? You know, Yahweh Shai, man. It basically, it tells you he was rejected, a man of sorrows, and acquainted with grief, man. Okay? You know, so, you know, when you look at the story of the Lord, he was going through it, man. He was, you know, he really was put to the ultimate test, the ringer. You know, he went through a lot within, you know, his life, within the, you know, the time that he had within the, you know, the ministry, okay, teaching, okay. He had a lot of people that was out to do what? They was really out to kill him, man. You know, it's not just disbelief. It's, you know, the same thing with, you know, Paul, man. Okay, he was imprisoned, he was stoned. Okay, the Lord loves him, but he had to actually go through physical pains from the Lord. But even he, you know, him and even Peter tells you that, you know, basically, you know, our light affliction isn't even to be compared to the things that we're going to receive, man. So you're going to go through it, man. You're going to have to walk the walk, you know, talk the talk. Okay, the Lord's love is going to come with a lot of pain, man, and a lot of loss. Okay, let's get another precept real quick. Got a few lined up. All right, this is Philippians 3 and verse 7. It says, but what things were gained to me, those I counted loss for Hamashiach. Right, you know, going back into basically Ecclesiastes, okay, you know, the 2nd chapter, if I'm not mistaken, okay, where it basically speaks on, you know, the gaining of all these different things within the world, okay, was basically nothing but vanity, man. You know, all the labors underneath the sun was nothing but vanity. It really just didn't mean anything, right? It had no importance to deal with the spirit, man. But what was important within those chapters, man, within that chapter, wisdom Wisdom was important, man. And the keeping of wisdom. Okay. That's what it was. So it says, I'm gonna read that verse again. It says, but what things were gained to me, those I counted loss for Hamashiach. Right? And you're set, man. You're set to potentially go through the same or similar test that, you know, Job went through. Right? The brother Job, the Lord loved Job, right? He was a man of the Lord, but he suffered, pains within the body. He had boils, okay? He lost his family. He lost like basically like riches, wealth. Okay? That could be pretty hard on the mind, man. Okay? The losing of your family and and just everything, man. So those brothers, the prophets in the scriptures was set forth as an example. As the scriptures say, everything that is written aforetime is written for our learning, right? It's those things are duly noted. Okay, you say, okay, I see this brother set for an example. And even at camp, we brought out, if I'm not mistaken, 2nd Maccabees, the 6th chapter, where it talked about Eleazar, man. And it talked about, what he went through. Okay. And him losing, his life to basically keep his integrity, towards the Lord. He said, I worked my whole life to do the work of the Lord. And here I am, I'm going to give up in my old age to try to save my life. Right? That's why the scriptures tell you that, basically, the man that's trying to save his life shall lose it. You know what I'm saying? Roughly paraphrasing. Okay. Now I'm going to continue on. This is Philippians 3 and verse 8. It says, yeah, doubtless. Okay. And it says, and I counted all things but loss for the excellency of the knowledge of Hamashiach Yahushai, my Lord, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things, and do count them but dung, that I may win Hamashiach. Right? So what, man? All things are but what? Vanity, man. A loss to the Lord. But what did we win over in return? It says for the knowledge of Hamashiach Yahushai, knowing who he is. Okay? Knowing his name. The doctrine. Okay? Some of those brothers within the scriptures, they may have had different riches within the world, so to speak, but they all had to drop those things, man. Okay? So the Lord's love will come with pain, man. It's going to come with loss. It's going to come with hurt. It's going to come with trials. It's going to come with tribulations. There's a lot that's going to come with, worshiping Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai, okay? All right, let's get another precept. Okay. Let's see, yeah. Probably close out. So, right, because another thing, to speak on, we had a few different brothers that went through some things, right? We had, Daniel. He was what? A man of the Lord, okay? But he was in where? The lion's den, okay? Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, they was in the lion's den, okay? All right? So, looking at their story, I mentioned, Eleazar. We mentioned Abraham. Okay. We mentioned Paul. Okay. And, it's like, yeah, kind of, like them there, based on the, I guess the son or whatnot. But, look at them. They were set forth as an example, man. They did the will of the Lord. The Lord loved them, but it came with pain. It came with hurt. It came with loss. Okay, it came with sufferings and afflictions, man. Okay, you know, and the scriptures tell you that the servant's not greater than his master, man. Okay, so if the Lord, you know, if the Lord was, chastised, if he was beaten, if he lost his life, then, we're expected to have this. Some of us are expected to have the same endings, okay? But our endings are nothing but what? The beginnings of something beautiful. Lord willing, would be at that number, okay? All right, this is Wisdom of Solomon 3 in verse 1. It says, but the souls of the righteous are in the hand of God, and there shall no torment touch them. It says, in the sight of the unwise, right? This is basically, non-believers, the heathen, okay? They would be, the unwise, okay? And it says, they seem to die, and their departure is taken for misery, okay? Right, so they, they seem to go through what? What the scripture said earlier, man. It's basically, going into them seeming to go through a lot, man. Those trials and tribulation. And it's going to go into it. It says, and they're going from us to be utter destruction, but they are in peace. Okay. And it says, verse 4 says, for though they be punished in the sight of men, yet is their hope full of immortality. Right? Because even sometimes, some people may be like, similar to how Job, a woman was. You say, hey man, you still gonna worship the Lord, even though he's doing all these things to you. And I believe he said something along the lines like, you sound like a foolish woman, or something along those lines. Okay. And that's people in the world that really think that, man. They say, man, this man, he serves the Lord, but man, he ain't got nothing. He poor. You know what I'm saying? This man worked 2 jobs. You know what I'm saying? He might work 10, 12 hours a day. There'll be days where brothers work 16 hours, and that's just, to keep their head, try to keep their head above water or whatever, support their family or whatever it is that they have going on. Basically, how does the Lord love this man if he's making him go through all this kind of stuff? Okay. Basically, people say, how does the Lord love this man if he's making him go through these trials and tribulations, these pains? But he's a man of the Lord, though. Okay. Shouldn't the Lord bless them? That's the mindset of the people, man. The things that they think about. Right? And they end up saying, well, I don't want to serve this power because look at what he going through. But this is the basically this is the end result. All right. And it says, verse 5, it says, having been a little chastened, okay, it says they shall be greatly rewarded. Right? So we are, through the spirit of power, Yahweh Shema Shai, chastened by the Lord, man. And hopefully, the Lord deal with us, continue to deal with us as sons of the power, man, of the Lord, okay? And it said what? It says they shall be greatly rewarded, right? So they're basically coming into the confines of being, princes of the power, getting the kingdom of heaven. Finally receiving the rewards that came with doing the work of the Lord. Okay. And it says, for God proved them and found them worthy for himself. It says, as gold in the furnace have he tried them and received them as a burnt offering. Right? It's good. Look, going through that purification process. Right? You got things that's wrong with you, spiritually, those things, basically have to be rooted out of you, okay? So that you could be a more complete spiritual man in order to receive Yahweh Bashim Hawashai, okay? You know? And it says, and in the time of their visitation, right? Because the Lord's going to visit the people in general, but in the time of their visitation, they shall shine and run to and fro like sparks among the stubble. Okay? So that's, you know, that's beautiful, man. At the time of the Lord's visitation, you know, on these people who are basically, you know, the elect, you know, and also the 144K, okay? They're going to do what? They're going to shine, man. Like it says, they're going to be able to run like sparks among the stubble, man. Right? They're going to be real life, you know, Supermans, you know, Flashes, you know, basically, you know, characters that we'll see, you know, in Marvel or DC Comics, man. That's what those people got reward to them. But earlier in the chapter, it says that, man, it seems like these people are just getting, you know, put to death. They dying. They're going through all kinds of hell. You know what I'm saying? Why they, you know, the mindset of the unwise, like, why would they even worship the Lord if he gonna do all this to them? Well, that's because they understand and know what the reward is. Okay? They knew that the Lord, you know, had something planned for the elect of the nation of Israel. Okay? So, yeah, that's pretty much, you know, all I have, you know, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Hawashai. You know, like I said, that, you know, the title of today's lesson was The Lord's Love Will Come With Pain, man. Like I said before, it's going to come with hurt, loss, you know, trials and tribulations, sufferings, afflictions. Get used to feeling the pain, man. You're feeling the hurt, feeling the loss, man. All right. So, like I said, you know, with that, that's all I have through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Hawashai. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying, first and foremost, to the whole elect. But prior to getting out of here, we want to give all infinite honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahushai, Ba'ashim Rakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone who rule and teach well. Peace, blessings, and salutations be to the whole elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Kwam Yasha'Allah, Abba Babal, and Shalom.